Welcome to the Artsy Raven, a show about writing, publishing, and the arts. With your host, the award-winning writer, editor, and publisher, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of the Artsy Raven. Today our special guest is Alison Gadsby. So Alison lives and writes in Toronto, and her short fiction appears in Blank Spaces, the Teens Review, the Ex-Puritan, Blue Lake Review, and many other literary journals in Canada and abroad. She holds an MFA from the University of British Columbia and a degree in English Literature and Creative Writing from York University. She is the founder and host of Junction Reads, a prose reading series in the West End of Toronto, where she lives in a multi-generational home that includes several dogs. She enjoys writing novels, but is always writing weird, dark, and strangely funny short stories. And we'll have her links below to her website and more information about Junction Reads. So welcome, Alison.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Now, let's see. You did a lot of degrees in writing, so I guess you always knew you wanted to be a writer, I'm presuming.
I didn't actually always know I wanted to be a writer. I was always creating. I was always escaping into fictions, into creating other worlds for, the people in church or the people at the swimming pool or people in my family. And I didn't really think of writing as as a career. To be honest, didn't think of much as a career. We grew up with not very much money at all, and so going to university was a dream in and of itself. And so I didn't really dream about anything. When I became or tried to become an actor, I got into improvisation and sketch comedy. And I realized very quickly that I enjoyed the writing aspect of sketch comedy more than I actually enjoyed the performing. The performing was horrific. It was outrageously, it was awful. It was awful. But I really loved the writing. I really loved sitting down with my writing partner at the time and coming up with these like wacky, dark, funny sketches, 2 to 10 minute long sketches. And when I quit comedy and moved to the UK, I started turning those sketches into short stories and absolutely loved it. And that was it. So when we came back from England, I kind of started dreaming about the possibility of going to university. I had two kids at that point, three
Oh,
kids
wow.
by the time I went to university, and I wanted to see if I could do it, if I was any good at it. And that was it. So we scraped together money. I ended up getting a ton of scholarships, which is honestly, I don't know how we would have managed the debt if I didn't end up getting that scholarship money. Yeah, and that's it, I guess.
Well, I can't imagine starting a degree with so many kids. I only have one, and they're like a little vampire. Like, all my energy just drains. Like, I don't know if I have energy to
Yeah.
do anything else.
Well, I did it. I managed. I mean, this is the beauty, and people don't tell you this um, as a person dreaming about going to
Mhm.
university. People don't tell you that you can actually manipulate your schedule in such a way that it doesn't actually impact life. So I think that the littles were only in daycare maybe 2 mornings a week. I think I figured that out. I took a couple of classes at night. I took classes first thing in the morning so that I could be back in time to pick them up for, noon or whatever. So it is possible. I mean, financially, it sometimes
Like, were
isn't,
you
but
working at the same time or no?
at no, I so I
Yes.
took I yeah, I wasn't working while I was going to school. Although no, that's actually not true. I was working as a bartender two
Okay.
nights a week. I was. I forgot that I took that bartending job again. Yeah.
Now you did all the school, but at what point did you? I guess you also had worked on a manuscript at the same time. Were you thinking of publishing at that point, or were you just want to go to school first and just learn?
So before I started school, I was in a workshop. I started a local writers workshop at my local library, and I was writing short stories. I was trying to submit them, but not really submitting them because my self-doubt and fear was also a little bit out of whack with my desire. Like they didn't really match up. Um, so I was always writing. I thought when I went to do my MFA that I would write a collection of stories as my thesis, but I ended up coming up with this idea that overtook me for a novel, and that's what I ended up writing as my thesis. That novel didn't end up going anywhere. It's sitting in a drawer, will probably never be seen again. But um, yeah, I learned a lot. And, it took me a lot of years after finishing my MFA to learn how to manage myself emotionally, to learn how to deal with the anxiety and the fear and the self-doubt and everything else that goes along with that, which is why, it took me 10 years to figure out how to sit down and squash that fear and start submitting it to a whole bunch of publishers.
Okay, so I mean, did it take a long time? Like, did you look for an agent first, or did you just go after the publishers? Like, what was
So
your process?
I have a novel right now that's also going to be published in 2028 with Palimpsest Press, and that novel was kind of the focus of my 10 years, if I'm being completely honest. I always write short stories. I've got a ton of them on my laptop, but that novel was what I really wanted to get published. And I queried a bunch of agents with that novel. I did query a few small presses with a very, very terribly structured draft of that novel. And when all the rejections came in, I lost hope for the novel until someone said you should send it to an editor who has nothing at stake. And that's what I did. And the novel became what it is now, and probably the reason why it was accepted.
Cool. Now, your work is described as weird, dark, and funny. Like, what kind of inspires these kind of stories? Like, you have a lot of short fiction, so um,
Um, I mean, I really hate saying it all the time, but the reality is I hold a lot of trauma in my body. I hold a lot of anxiety in my body, carried from previous generations. I um I just always think of the darkest, strangest, most intrusive way to respond to an everyday situation. And so these stories end up becoming kind of analogies of my own emotional state of mind, but not consciously, if that makes any sense. Like I never sit down and consciously think, I'm going to explore, um, my fear today, or I'm going to explore my anxiety today, or I'm going to sit down and really think about my childhood trauma and the abuse. I don't. It just kind of comes out in these wackadoodle characters struggling to survive.
oh, can you tell us a little bit about the stories in your latest collection? The breathing is how some people stay alive.
So all of the stories revolve around, they don't necessarily all center, but they all revolve around water and swimming. And I like that. It's not something that, again, I was conscious of doing. I just happened to be a swimmer. My kids were swimmers. We happen to be a family that spends a lot of time in and around the water. And so it was an accident that all of the stories happened to revolve around water. But when I thought about it and when I chose the title, after I chose the title, I thought it's true that water is deadly or buoyant, right? It can be the thing that saves you from yourself, but it can also be the thing that kills you. It can it can contribute to your struggle to breathe. And so the that's essentially what all of the stories have in common, but at the same time, the stories connect in different ways. There are humanoids that exist in a world where a company called Fantastic Forms exists. They create these humanoids for various reasons, for various uses, at the request of people who have the money to have certain things programmed in the humanoids. So there's probably four stories that exist in that world. And then there are a couple of kids, a couple of swimmers who we see grow up across four of the stories. Yeah, so they're just stories that are exploring human connection
Yeah, I actually
and
flipped through your book,
like
and yeah, the first one I really liked because it was, well, without giving too much away, it was about a humanoid that someone had and they couldn't afford to upgrade it. And I was like, that is so true. Like, after
yeah.
you buy this technology, and then what happens, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
oh, boy. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
That's okay.
But now, what was it very challenging to finish this book? Like, did you face any challenges at all?
I think the biggest challenge was financial because I had to get an editor. I realized when I had it all together that I didn't really know how to pitch it. I didn't really
Mhm.
know how to talk about it with people. And like really wanted to understand what this collection meant to an outsider, what it meant to someone else, because I knew what it meant for me. I knew how I felt after I read some of the stories. And so used a little bit of a tax refund and hired an editor. And I know that's a privilege, and I'm very lucky that I had that opportunity because it changed everything for me. She is the one who saw the little swimmers struggling to survive. She's the one who saw the potential to connect all of the stories because they weren't really connected
Mhm.
before she saw it. And she's the one who really said, like, all of these characters are struggling to survive in some capacity. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, yes, okay, like all of us, right? Struggling to survive. And so that really put it together for me emotionally, and it helped me edit it and, figure out a way to link them with that emotional thread. And that made it easier to sell it.
Yeah, I don't think people
Yeah.
understand the value of editors sometimes. Like, they're not working against you, they're working with you.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And I think a lot of people are afraid,
yes.
they have this finished product and they're
Mhm,
afraid to send it to an editor because they're afraid the editor's going to come back and say you have to do all this work to it. But the reality is if you can't afford an editor, like pay someone a little bit of money that you know who is going to be unafraid to tear it apart.
mhm.
Because if you don't take that final draft and tear it apart and put it all back together again at least once, you're going to waste your time, you're going to waste your energy, you're going to waste your emotional, like the very little emotional breath
Energy,
that we
yeah.
have, not even energy, just
Yeah.
we only have a small amount of rejection that we can
Mhm.
take as artists, as fragile creative types. And if you send out an unfinished product and you spend a year, because let's be real, it takes a year, you send them all out to your, maybe top five publishers, you wait for rejections to start coming in, and then you send it out to another top five, and then you wait for some more rejections to come in. And then when you get that final rejection, which is what I did with the first novel, I sent it to like, my top three, and then I sent it to my top three. When I got all those rejections back, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, let me look at this again. And of course, it needed so much work.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed to have had people look at that. But really and truly, I urge any writer listening to this to allow someone to tear it apart. You're either going to spend a year completely revising that final draft, that quote final draft, or you're going to spend a year getting rejected.
Mhm.
There's probably one way that's better.
And now, do you have a writing routine at all, like, when you work?
I am a morning person. I am usually up by 7 in the morning. I'm usually sitting down at my computer by 8 or 9, depending on how much coffee I need. And it also depends on my schedule with Junction Reads and with Howl with the interviews that I do um, when I actually sit down and do my own writing. But yeah,
Okay.
morning. I cannot write after 5 p.m. Like once 5 o'clock hits, I'm usually starting to dream about dinner and TV.
Now, you mentioned Junction Reads and Howl. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about them?
So Junction Reads is a prose reading series I started in 2014. It's exactly 12 years ago now. And it started because in our writers group, we were sitting around saying, like, how do we meet writers? Where do we go to meet other writers? And there weren't a lot of reading series at the time. Brockton was happening, but there weren't a lot of other reading series in the city. And I had just finished my two degrees, my undergrad and my MFA, and I thought, oh, I wonder if I could get some of my teachers to come and read from their latest books. And I wonder if this place in my neighborhood of the Junction at the time would let us use their space for free. And so they did. This incredible space that used to exist in the Junction, 3030 said absolutely. You just have to pay the sound guy $50. And I thought, okay, well, I'll probably make $50 at the door if I have these amazing writers come. And so I did that. And then I did it again. And I did it again. And then I think in that 2014, February, March, and April or May, I can't remember. I think we did 3 events. And in the summer, I thought, I think I'm going to be able to do this. So I
Hmm.
just cold contacted small press publishers and asked them if they had any authors in Toronto who would like to come and read. And it went from there. And now, we get on average 80 to 100 authors who want to take part, and we've got 28 spots. So if there's anybody out there who wants to start a reading series in Toronto, I urge
Yeah.
you to do that. And then Howl is a literary radio hour that happens on CIUT 89.5 FM. It's
Hmm.
the University of Toronto radio station, and Holly Gattery and Valentino Essenza have been co-hosting for the last couple of years, and Valentino Essenza took it over from a pal um, a few years ago. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly when. And again, Valentino as a single person doing the work of 3 people asked for help, and I said absolutely. I love talking to writers. I love being kind of forced to read books that I wouldn't normally read, that aren't my instinctive adds to my TBR pile. And yeah, so that's it.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you get a lot of questions from new writers, but do you have
Mhm.
any advice you would give to people that are starting to write or aspiring writers?
Yeah, I think my greatest advice comes from conversations I've had with Hale, a conversation I coincidentally just had with Anuja Varghese about community. And I really do think that it is essential that emerging writers find their community, whether it is starting their own writers group. And I mean it when I say if you contact your local library and say, can we have a space? It's not that much if you get 10 people to divide, what it works out to be a month for your to use a space at your local library. And if you put an ad on Facebook or in, any number of the writing groups on Facebook that you want writers to join you in this workshop, you'll get a ton of people. And reading series, whatever community you're in, look for local reading series, whether it's poetry or prose, and show up and talk to the host, introduce yourself to the host, and keep going. Right? I've had a number of emerging writers come to Junction Reads and introduce themselves to me, and then I never see them again. And I know writers are introverts, and the idea of going out in public and introducing yourself and talking to other people is just an awful, awful idea. But
Yeah.
the reality is it just makes it so much easier when you get to the point that you've got a finished draft and you want to send it out. You've already got, 20 people in your life that you can say, what do you think of this query letter? Do you think I should send it to this publisher? Or, do you have a publisher who you think I should send this to? And you've had, even if it's just your little group of 20 people, you're going to get 19 people tell you what they think you should do, and you're not alone, and you're, embarking on that journey with support.
Cool. Okay, so now you're going to do a bit of a reading for us. Could you give us some context before you start reading?
Um, I think I'm just going to read from the first story.
Okay.
I would yeah, I think that I'm not sure how far I will get with this story, but this is the deal with Roger. This is one of the humanoid stories. Mirabelle is a very tall girl. She's a very big girl. Her dad had very little faith in her, and when she was very young, he bought at auction a humanoid for his daughter, for companionship and for this future marriage that he was certain she wasn't going to be able to navigate on her own. Mirabelle wants to learn to swim, but she's been told her whole life she'd just sink to the bottom, and that swimming is not only a risk to her, but to the lifeguards who might have to retrieve her extra large body from the deep end of a pool. At 6 feet, 8 inches, and 250 pounds, Mirabelle has always been self-conscious. But as the newest partner at the country's largest forensic accounting firm, she learned success comes with hard work and determination. She's tired of being told she can't do something. When Mirabelle was 13 years old, her father bought her Roger. She was already over 6 feet tall, and after her only friend Shannon was shipped off to a boarding school for at-risk youth, Mirabelle had nobody. Roger was supposed to be the high school boyfriend, the high school prom date, the boy back home when she was in college, and the husband she introduced to people at work if she ever found an employer who'd hire her. Instead of purchasing him new, her father went to police auctions until he found Roger, a 6'7" humanoid who was erased and reprogrammed for reuse. It was clear what her father loved about him. He looked like Dolph Lundgren from those old Rocky movies, and because he was built without a penis, her father didn't have to imagine Mirabelle using him as a glorified sex toy. The most Mirabelle has ever done is have him lick her nipples while she masturbated. Even that was short-lived, because Roger was sure he could masturbate her better and refused to keep his hands to himself. At 32 years of age, Mirabelle has never had sex. The toys in the bathroom might have removed the anatomical evidence of her virginity, but she can't believe a real person could love the sight and smell of her as much as the abstraction she fucks in the tub. Roger can never learn to swim. "Where are you going?" Roger asks. Mirabelle is afraid to say because he'll want to come and watch her at the pool. She also worries his rage is escalating. He swears all the time, and when they were watching Housewives, he told Mirabelle he'd like to take a Colt AR-15 and kill them all. When he went into Fantastic Forms for the age upgrade, she mentioned it to them, and the broken dishes. She also told the technician that he'd started to call her names, which she didn't at all enjoy, even if he was joking. "I am here for you," he says. "I know that. I'll be back before Survivor comes on," she says. "I am here for you," he says. As in, I have nobody else with which to distract myself. "Do you want me to press pause?" "No, I don't want you to fucking press pause. How many times have I told you? You lay one fucking salami finger of yours on me and, well, you do not want to know." "I promise. I won't be long. I spent all day cooking this carbonara for you." Roger lifts the lid on the pot and digs his right hand into the hot linguine. He shakes a fistful of it in her face, and she watches bits of bacon fly around the kitchen. Mirabelle steps back as he moves toward her. "Roger, stop. This is not appropriate." He raises an eyebrow and slowly places the remaining noodles back into the pot. and stirs it with a wooden spoon. Roger used to apologize when he crossed the line. He used to let her pause his program when she went to work, but he convinced her a decade ago that he could use the time during the day to make her life better. And isn't that what he was for? I'll be back before Survivor. Fine. Mirabelle slips her feet into a pair of flip-flops, and before she walks out the front door, she feels something hit the back of her head. It's linguine, an egg. She leaves without turning around and picks all the bits out of her hair on the way to the pool. Her lips have been bothering her, and her hips have been bothering her, and her doctor warned her she needs to lose weight or hip replacement surgery will happen sooner than later. The swimming instructor is lovely, and the class demographics include all age groups, genders, and body sizes. They spend the first class paddling in the shallow end and practice putting their faces in the water and blowing bubbles. In their second class, they learn how to starfish and float on the surface, which, contrary to everything her father had her believe, Mirabelle does successfully. At the end of the introductory course, they must kick from one end of the pool to the other using a flutterboard. Mirabelle completes it in 40 seconds. She hides the certificate in the glove compartment of the car. In the fall, the manager at the recreation center informs her that her instructor recommended she jump ahead to level 3, which is 2 evenings a week. Mirabelle asks for time to consider. She'll have to talk to her husband. I'm just going to skip ahead for a second. At the pool, Mirabelle explains to the recreation manager that she can't do the next level. Her husband is busy with work, and she can't be out more than one night a week. Is everything okay? The recreation manager asks. Her name is Teresa. She isn't as tall as Mirabelle, but she's tall enough that when she stands, her fingertips don't touch the desk. She wears a bathing suit under a tank top and blue jeans. Mirabelle enjoys it when Teresa sometimes gets in the water after the adult lessons. Her face is the sort she'd describe as kind, bright, smiling brown eyes that widen instinctively when she greets Mirabelle or anyone at the front desk. The marionette lines around her mouth don't make her look sad, and she wears her long, salty brown hair in 2 braids behind her ears. She has a dozen beaded bracelets on her left wrist that represent various ocean species she wants to protect from the plastic that's killing them. It's fine. It's just difficult. It only takes one person to ask Mirabelle if she is okay for her to start crying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. It's just I've noticed how much you love the water. Your face lights up in the pool. I can't do this, Mirabelle manages to say. I'm sure if your husband saw you here, he'd figure out a way to make it work. Perhaps a babysitter? We don't have kids. Mirabelle takes the tissue the woman offers and wipes the tears from under her eyes. You don't have kids? Then why, if you don't mind me asking, why can't you be out 2 nights a week? Roger doesn't like being alone. Mirabelle sees the surprise, the shock maybe. Why doesn't he come with you then? He can't swim. You couldn't swim last spring, and look at you now. He can't swim because Mirabelle almost says it, but she signs her name on the attendance sheet and turns to leave. Her father said only the most desperate people purchase a humanoid for companionship, and only an idiot would tell anyone they have one. I'm going to finish there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, this was a great
Thanks.
story, I have to say.
Thank you.
I'll try to get my husband to read it too. Um, well, best of luck on everything, and
Thank you.
yeah, and hope everything goes well in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone listening.
The Artsy Raven is produced by Dark Helix Press. Introduction voiceover by Chris Gorman. Music by Tim Moore. Please access your bonus content on the Patreon website. Thank you very much for listening, and please stay safe.